Hello, everybody, and welcome on board to this. I think this is actually our last live session of the year, and I don't know if we can say we've saved the best for last, but at least
That's nice of you.
Today we have my good friend Lars Johan here to talk together with me about how to craft a commercial concept that works. I think. Have you actually ever worked in B2C, Lars, or is it? I've only ever worked in B2B, so everything we're going to talk about today is going to be about B2B and how to do concepts in this world. But Lars, for those who maybe don't know you, maybe you can just like kind of the quick background again about who you are, maybe more about also what ScaleupXQ do, and then we jump into today's menu after that.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for having me again. This is very nice, and it's nice to be the last show before Christmas. Yeah. So I'm Lars Johan, and I've been working in the commercial space for the better part of 20 years. And I've only been connected to companies in the go-to-market stage. So that means basically, I usually say 0 to 100 million in revenue and 0 to 100 people in the commercial department.
Yeah.
And I've done it quite a few times. So I've seen quite a few things. And then I made this into my business. So ScaleupXQ is my current business, and we've been going at it since 2018. And basically enter other companies' organizations in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and now also we work a bit in Germany and UK, and I think also with some Asian companies. Actually, we enter their companies and work as their commercial go-to-market organization while supporting them in establishing their own. So basically getting all the frameworks up and actually being their salespeople on the ground, knocking all the doors, taking on the sales processes and so forth, and making sure that we connect it to marketing and customer success. So we don't only look upon it from a vertical perspective, but we think 360 all the time, right? So we've seen quite a lot. We have been working with, approximately, I believe we counted the other day, so we are now pushing towards 170 companies that we've been supporting over the last 5 years, and we haven't only like advised them; we've been in like trenches doing the sales work, right? And right now we are at this moment running about 8,000 B2B outbound sales processes on a monthly basis on behalf of our customers, and connected to each of those, this might be 10 to 15 sales activities. So it's hundreds of thousands of sales activities every month. And we try to gather all the learnings from this so we can sit in forum like yours today and share some of our insights, what we've been seeing, what is the read across from all these different players out there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like you should publish a book at some point.
Yeah, but now you don't have to do that. The whole chat machine will do it for you, so it's too late.
It could be like 10,000 ways that you won't succeed selling.
Yeah, that actually would probably be a good book, because we have tried all the 10,000 ways, and there's definitely there's more similarities to the ones that succeed than the ones that don't succeed. There's so many ways of failing, right? And one of them is actually that you haven't paid attention when it comes to crafting in a way the concept that you're trying to position in front of someone that is going to buy your product or service. Down prioritizing this is something we see a lot of companies doing. And especially founders, they believe that salespeople, they will just naturally understand the value propositions and the rationale behind why someone should buy something.
Yeah.
But that is rarely the case, right? So we have to work as a team in a way to get to that rational to sit. And if the rational sits, suddenly everyone can be very strong in communicating the values and the value drivers of a product and a service, but without it, it's hard.
Yeah. So I guess like today we're kind of what I'm hoping to extract from you is kind of that perfect recipe of how how B2B companies craft a commercial concept. But maybe like I know you prepped a little bit of a menu of things we could run through here. So maybe if you share your screen, then we can kind of just read up the menu and jump on the first point. But just before we do that, like anybody listening, like do feel free to type into the chat the questions you have or like the comments you have. If Lars says something you want to have an elaboration of, you just go ahead and ask him. But let me try to click this button, Lars, and see if we get the menu here. I think we do.
There's some points.
Yeah, so if you quickly just run through kind of these like just the bullets, and then we pick the bullet you feel like where we should start.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a rational, right? This is just like a bit. It might seem a bit random, but also maybe we could also visit another model later, and then you will see that it makes a bit more sense. But I believe that the first point there is super important, and this is something that I've been in a way working with for as long as I actually can remember. That when it comes to B2B sales, and if you look upon the B2B sales organizations that are the most successful, they are the ones that are actually able to communicate and anchor value and not anchor product feature functionality. This is a huge differentiation, and it's easy to say, but it's harder to do, because we see that if you haven't if the people working in sales, if they can't see the hierarchy of rationals and the natural rational why someone in a certain position in an organization should become a customer of yours, because your product is contributing to A, B, and C when it comes to value creation for that person in that organization in particular. If they don't understand that rational, they are basically leaning upon value propositions that is created from other people, and that strains your communication. And suddenly you can't actually drive a dialogue. It becomes just like a selling pitch. So going from selling pitching to actually value-based selling, it's super important. And so that's why I wanted to put that on the top of the list. And this is a way maybe where the commercial concept and drafting of like a sales narrative starts. And what we usually do is that we typically take it in to our thinking that most businesses out there, they care about one thing and one thing only, and that is money, right? That's why they have a life. You know, if they don't earn money, or if they don't make margins, or and hopefully something in the combination of those two, they they don't survive. So if you can't anchor your value and your value generation to either increasing revenue or decreasing cost at some level, it's going to be hard for you to get a position in that company. And I'm not saying that all companies are like that, but I definitely mean that when we have the most success with breaking the companies and products that we are working with into the market, is when we are successful in lifting out the value of the product and anchoring it towards how it contributes to revenue generation or cost reduction, or both. And of course, there can be both, right?
Yeah, maybe like, so say you get a fresh new customer of yours at Scaleup. Kind of, how do you then go from whatever they have today to more? I guess it's both. It's a messaging you have in writing, but it's also something that whoever is doing the outreach needs to take to heart as well. So I guess there's both the training of the human, and then there's the actual text going along with it.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. And when it comes to the messaging part of it, we usually say that the messaging part of it, it's just a result of the rational when it comes to how you would like to communicate again the values towards the right stakeholders and so forth. So, but what we typically start by doing is that we typically start by sorting out the different ways your product is actually then solving some kind of problem, and it doesn't have to be a problem for someone in the beginning. We just basically break it out and say like, okay, your product here, it covers actually quite a bit. Usually it's packaged in certain tiers or certain pricing tiers and stuff like that, but the logic of what is in those tiers, it sometimes, or most of the times, it doesn't make that much sense. And if it do make sense, because of course often it does make sense too, it's still important that we as salespeople understand the rationale behind it. So even though you already made this kind of sorting out of your product value creation functionality, and you've been tearing it and so forth, just giving this to a salesperson and saying like, this is what we sell, that doesn't really work. We have to have an explanation of why that, you know. So that's why we start with that. So maybe I should I share that other one, Stefan?
You have some model or something like that?
I believe we have this one, the other one, the slide one. Yeah, it might be a little bit small, but let's say So basically, like we call this a product narrative. So typically, like I can exemplify it a bit. So look upon like let's say a reporting product, right? A product that is doing something connected to reporting. You basically, the logical order of thing is that you, at some level, to be able to do some great reporting, you definitely are collecting data. You're probably analyzing data. You're probably highlighting findings in the data. Maybe you're coming with optimization suggestion connected to the data. And maybe if your data pool is big enough, you can also become like a predictable tool at some level, right? So what we try to do is that we try to make a logical rationale when it comes to which one of these components in the product is actually coming in which order, and why is it coming in that order. So what is the minimum you need to start with to start building the commercial concept, right? And that is sometimes when we flesh this out, and this is also, if you look up on the blue line at the top, it's illustrating that. Sometimes when we flesh this out, we see that different parts of the product is contributing to different side of the economic impact. So while your product suite might actually contribute mostly to revenue generation, actually when you look upon the product and how it's actually, if you break it apart, some parts will be about efficiency and how you actually reduce costs because you're taking away work, and other parts are contributing more towards the revenue generation because you're highlighting, for instance, then findings so that you can optimize so you can actually make more money. And if you don't understand this, it's very difficult to lead a dialogue. So what we try to do is to map it out so you can actually give the salespeople a tool to lead a dialogue without actually understanding the technical aspects of a product. So it always starts with that, and of course it starts with highlighting the value drivers. That's the second part. What is the value driver that actually supports these kind of product narratives? So the analyzed product, for instance, what is the value drivers? What does it actually do? What is the highlighting tool do? What is the optimization tool do? And why do we believe this is valuable up towards reducing cost or increasing revenue? And then from a sales perspective, it's important to understand as soon as possible, why should we get pushback when it comes to that? Because we do get pushback all the time.
Yeah.
And pushback is something that sales has to work around. And if we don't understand that pushback also with the logical order and the rationale, we just start reading from a list. Yeah, but you should buy this because of A, B, and C. But no, that's not how you sell. You have to explain it, right? And then you have to understand the rationale. Yeah. So yeah, so I believe also that probably you are doing like you coming from I believe that you are like an exceptional person when it comes to the whole like marketing side, and we have been talking about this before, and this is probably not something that is unknown for you. What is unknown for people working in sales is typically that they get delivered this from someone in marketing or a founder, but they don't get explained the rationale. So they lose out the whole content, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a lot of companies who who doesn't do this work that you have in this kind of sheet or this overview here?
Yeah, for sure. We talk to hundreds of companies a year. Like we talk to a lot of companies, and we work also with the more established startups, scale-ups, companies with hundreds of millions in revenue already. So and just newly founded companies. And the common denominator between them is actually that they have fleshed out some parts. They have fleshed out maybe they looked at the ICP. They looked at a description of the ICP. They have set maybe some general value proposition and some unique selling points. But they then maybe often what we see is that they have some documentation of this, but since this has been generated some time ago, or it's been generated from someone not necessarily connected to the sales organ, it typically lacks the layer of the rational again. So you can't actually connect it and see the logic in it, and that means that you're just forwarding something to the salespeople that is actually setting them up for failure. Like if you would like to empower like salespeople, you need to give them the freedom to communicate, and the freedom to communicate is something you only can do if they understand the commercial in a way concept of the product they are selling. Right?
Does this fall in the bucket of, let's say, more BDR work, or also account executive work, or both? Yeah,
Both.
Yeah.
Even to this is definitely all, and even more important actually in the account executive work, because when you get into the account executive position and you are then expected to be able to go a little bit deeper when it comes to the product.
Yeah.
If you haven't fleshed out the rationals, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle big time, right?
Cool. I think this, well, maybe like conceptually this would fall into the bucket of maybe preparation for go-to-market or the commercial concept, that if you just rush into it without actually thinking things through, then the likelihood of success is not super large.
Exactly. And we typically, what we say is that we have like 3 areas that we typically focus on when it comes to prepping for the go-to-market stage.
Yeah.
Where one of the area is positioning, but positioning looked from a sales perspective. And then the positioning part, this what we're talking about now is just a part of the positioning part. This is again then broken out and worked further on, going deeper actually into each and every buyer profile or decision maker profile, all depending on what you call it, and then you start fleshing out the rationale, so you can actually connect the product narrative with the value creation, with the barriers, with the typical high level ICP, with a high level decision maker group, going into an individual decision maker, looking at the motivation of that person, and we are digging it down all the way into the nitty-gritty details, and from that we can then start and build the sales narratives for that person in particular, based on that string of communication. And this is something that we always do with all our customers.
That's so much work.
Huh?
That's so much work.
Well, it's so much work, but it's really it's not if you know what you're looking for. So think about this: like when we set up like this positioning part and flesh this out, we also do then a second part, which is sales processes. So all the functions that we have, like it's process oriented and how did we measure success and so on. And then we have something that we say that we build a performance framework. So how do we work then in everyday work life to use this positioning in the processes, right? So we set up all this through a series. So actually, because we know what we're looking for, so we only do maybe 5 to 6 workshops with our customers, and they are come as you are. And from that, we build all the playbooks and set up the CRM system, everything, optimize it, so we can go out 2 to 3 weeks afterwards into the market and do all the work, so we can actually learn from the market as soon as possible. So yes, it's a lot of work. If it can be a lot of work, but it's not really if you know what you're looking for.
Oh, that's good. If we jump back to the menu again, then let's take the next bullet. Yeah, I can definitely agree to this one. B2Bs mostly care about revenue.
Yes.
What was your thoughts behind this one, Lars?
Yeah, so we have been already, I guess that we already been addressing it to some part, but when we look upon, when we work with the organizations, and this is something that probably most of us and most of the ones that are listening in also are quite used to, the ones that have been developing the products, very often, not all the time, but very often it's a solution trying to find a problem and not the opposite. And it's a solution trying to find a problem. That means that it's been developed a little bit before actually you understood what would be the use of the product. And you definitely, in most cases, when you come from a product development perspective, haven't been thinking about how this is contributing to the health of the company as a whole. That means the company of the customer. It's typically very oriented in solving like you're looking to solve some problem and you don't even know if that problem is real, but that's another thing. But it's very rarely that it's anchored up to the strategic value creation of a company, which is revenue. Revenue. Like if you can't like show that your product is contributing to increased revenue or some kind of cost decrease on some kind of level, or risk decrease, which of course then is connected to revenue and cost decrease, then you're gone, right?
It's good that you say this, Lars, because I live so deep in this revenue bucket that everything you do have to be connected to revenue, but I forget that many different companies work in different ways and don't always like align all activities perfectly towards revenue.
Yeah, but you do. Your whole software platform is revenue, right? So you're lucky. It's easy for you.
There's a question from one of your old connections here. It didn't come through on the chat, but I saw it on LinkedIn, so I'll pull it up here on the screen. So it's Øystein Schmidt. He's saying the process of sales, how it's being done, how has that changed during the years you've been involved, and what type of skills are key now versus what was key in the past? So you had no preparation. What's kind of your take on kind of what was working back then, and how has it changed to now?
Yeah. So this has been a very interesting journey. It's been like a transition that I would say like this, like let's say that we can see that we were transitioning from up until maybe 2011-12. It was extremely analog and a lot of and only phone heavy. I would say like emails is something you use to follow up with people, not anything else, right? And then it was also very generalist heavy. That means that one salesperson did everything. You basically booked your own meetings, you disqualified your own opportunities, you took the whole sales process. And maybe if you had a large organization, you use some kind of meeting booking agency or something like that. But in most cases, you didn't. You did everything yourself as one salesperson, one package deal. So what happened 2011, 2012 is that suddenly we got a lot of technology software to support the commercial functions. So we started with sales semi-automation. The CRM systems got smarter. It was not like only a container for information, but it became like a supportive tool for communication. So the roles also got specialized. So, and this happened 2000, I would say like 2011, 12, 13, and upwards. You see more and more specialization. So now you have specialists in prospecting, specialists in doing outbound first touch top of funnel. That means find the customer and keep them out of the sales pipeline until they're mature enough. You have specialized closers that take only the good opportunities and work the good opportunities. And then you have specialized account managers and customer success, right?
I think that's a really good point. Like 10 years ago, you needed to be able to do everything yourself. Like from finding the lead to engaging with it to getting the contract signed.
Yep.
What if you then like fast forward to today, kind of what is kind of how can you be successful in sales today? What are the key things here?
Yeah, so I believe that there's definitely one thing that has not been changing over time, and that is that even though it's been specializing and it's also like a lot of technologies that's been introduced in the B2B space, it's about ability to build relationships. And this has not been changing, and it's becoming even more important. Like I don't believe all this stuff I see when it comes to analysis from, especially from US and stuff like that, that the AI is going to replace sales. And they've been trying to automate sales for 20 years and nobody succeeded. And that's because we can't automate human relationships and the trust that is generated between people, right? And but what we see is that you can automate a lot of the work. So what I see now is, of course, that our BDRs and also BDRs in the more like forward organizations, they are utilizing the power, of course, AI. So they are becoming like almost like engineers that are working within this space to utilize and learn how to actually not only get support by software, but use software to actually be even better in their communication in the work and better in prospecting and so forth, right? So it's moving more to become, instead of being technology users, you're actually becoming like more or less as miniature architects within the technology to utilize the power of technology. Like just knowing how to ask the right questions, is so important when you're utilizing AI, for instance. So, and that becomes the new skill set. So there's also rumors and there's also like bets that's been taken in the scene that is going to go back to generalistic sales again, and that the model is broken and so forth. But I don't believe that at all. I just believe that people, they are working with too little insights into the numbers. They are not doubling down on the right thing, and especially they are not working on the right kind of commercial concept. So they are down prioritizing their communication skills. So you get shitty sales processes based on that. So let's take a bet on people in the sales process and software technology support.
It's a good point that kind of like if you don't get the fundamentals right, then all the scale that all the tools and the AI can give you doesn't help you if you don't like do that sheet that you showed before, thinking about who are we selling to, what is the feature, what is the value, etc. Like it's a little bit like crap in, crap out. Like if you really do good preparation, then there's also tools that can even help you scale and amplify your efforts.
Yes, for sure.
Cool. Let's jump to the next one.
And it's about the rational still. I think I just want to like be really like, this is like something that has not changed over time. And I believe that was like when I started selling in 2004, doing all the cold calling and cold like when I started cold calling, it was like if I didn't send out 12 to 15 offers every day, proposals, I was going to send it out every day, then you failed. Today, if you book one meeting, you know you're successful. And but it's still about the same. The ability to understand the rationale about what you're actually selling and able to communicate that rationale. This is not changed over time. It's just changed the setting that you're using it in, right? And this is also what you're pointing towards. Like You can use every tool in the world, but if you don't set up the tool the right way, in a rational way to support your work, well, it's going to screw up your work instead. Yeah.
That's good. I'll put up the next point here, so let's try to get through them. So I'll read it out loud, just giving you a little minute to think. So how do your product and or service contribute to increasing revenue or decreasing costs? You touched on it a little bit, Lars.
We touched on it a little bit. So I don't believe that we probably don't need to dwell too much on it. It's going to be repetition anyway. But as you so nicely put it yourself, Stefan, you are in this world all the time because you have a solution that is actually directly contributing to this. But most companies, they don't. It's indirectly. So asking yourself the question is like, yes, my product is sustainability reporting. Yes, that that is not contributing to revenue increase or cost reduction. So it's like, are you really sure about that? How do they do this reporting today? Are they punching this into Excel? Oh yeah, they are doing. Okay. It's like,
let's try to follow that path. Kind of, if it's also like a questioning technique, almost for the. Or that we've had it sometimes the other way around, where we have had customers coming in asking for a feature and kind of a gimmick of some sort. Yeah. And then our salespeople need to help them by questioning, move that up to kind of a higher perspective than just, I want a funnel. Okay, who fucking cares about a funnel? Why do you want a funnel? Is it because you feel like you're wasting money on ads? Okay, if we're able to help you see which kind of the ads that you're running, we can help you reduce cost, or the opposite. If we can help show you which ads are working, then you can put more money into the ads that work. But I think it's like let's use what report was it you said you had there, Lars?
No, it's just sustainability reporting. Like, this is something that's highly popular now.
Why should you keep for that? Why is it valuable?
Exactly, and there are of course several reasons for it, and for some organizations it becomes mandatory, right? And for other organizations it is going to become mandatory in the future. So why don't start collecting the data and solving the issues right now? And for some organizations it's not necessary at all at the moment. So, but then you should prioritize those organizations. Yeah. You should try to prioritize the other ones, right? But again, you're pointing to something that is really interesting when you're explaining also how your salespeople is then interacting with your customers, because they understand the rationale in your product, so they're actually able to lead the conversation to the place it should be. And this is the challenge. If you don't understand that, they would just spin around that fucking funnel and excuse my language, but and then it end up going to product department and becoming like a product request. Now we can't sell this because we don't have this funnel, and it's impossible. And but if you're a good salesperson, you walk around that because you understand the rationale and you anchor it higher up, and suddenly you solve the problem instead of trying to create a feature, right?
It is for any most sales conversation, it's almost like a fishing stick, where kind of they fish with a feature, and if you grab onto it, they'll just keep pulling on that feature. Yeah. But you need to be smart enough to not to bite on that feature, but you need to, there's those two outcomes we want. We want to be able to charge a lot of money, and we can only do that if we anchor it the right place, and that the right place is not giving you a feature. And the other one is that we don't want the customers to churn. So we also need them to understand what is the true value. Okay, we can give you the feature, but what is the value here? So when you're renewing your contract, we need to understand that we have actually delivered the value that you were talking about in the first place.
Exactly. And if you do that, and if you have that mindset in like in your sales organization, you will have sales people that are able to communicate this freely. Then suddenly you don't need scripts, right? Because you have it in your backbone, and you don't need such strict rules for communication, because you have the rationals in your backbone. And this is, again, back to where I believe a lot of sales organizations go wrong, since they are not giving salespeople the rationals behind things and teaching them and training them in the rationals. They end up training them in pitching and in sales techniques instead. And that is never going to bring anything good. And then you are pointing towards the salespeople when everything goes wrong, while it's actually not the salespeople, because they are not in fault, because they cannot communicate the rational. Especially if you sell something that is expensive and you're trying to anchor it higher up in a business hierarchy. Like seriously, like you really need the understanding of the logic in how a business is run and how you can attach the product and services to that. And if you do that work once for your organization and you do it in a good way, you can bring on young people into the organization, inexperienced salespeople, and you can train them in how to communicate the rational, and they can actually easily start connecting to top level executives and not be pushed out because they're too junior.
Yeah, and that you're touching something that we're thinking a lot about also, is kind of which salespeople should we hire, because it's like, to sell our product, it's good if you know B2B marketing, but there's also a sales craft you need to be able to know. And then it's also actually good to have some experience, so you know how to drive a project forward. And kind of what we're discussing sometimes is like, should we just try to hire marketers so they can talk all the lingo but don't have the sales craft? And I guess what you're saying here is that if we get relatively good salespeople, if we can just explain them the rationale of each use case, they don't have to be marketing discipline experts to deal with the customers.
No, I don't think. I don't believe that. And this is also one of the bullet points that I have done on the list. That like, and it's a little bit. It's the second last one. Most sales processes need more than just a sales professional, and but. So if you have sales professionals that understand how to, in a way, run a sales process and how to communicate the commercial concept, they might need to lean upon someone with marketing expertise that they can bring in to actually support and contribute in certain meeting points along the sales process. But I would say that I would take a bet on this any day, and I believe that I've proven it so many times, so I can, in a way, stand with my back straight too when I say it. Like, it's easier to get a sales professional that understand, like the ones that understand sales, to understand the rationale of a product than it is to a product expert to get good in sales. It's much easier. If you are a good salesperson and you get the rationals set up straight from the beginning, it's not a problem for these people, because that's the way the mind works. This is creative minds usually that are able to piece together information and puzzle it together in such a way that they can actually communicate it very well. And those people, you can put them in any situation if you just have the rationale straightened out. And some of them are, of course, fully capable of and most of them also, I would say, are fully capable of chiseling out these rationals themselves. But sadly, I would say they're usually prevented from doing this by the organization they're hired in, because the organization have pre-prepped materials and stuff like that, so they're expected to run with. So you're diminishing your quality of your salespeople by actually not really giving them only the rational and let them figure out the rest by themselves. Yeah, so I would highly recommend anyone bring in sales professionals and even juniors that other professionals can train, and lean upon product experts that are pulled in at certain point in the organization or a process. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's when you're in a sales process, I think this also relates to the point before, that most B2Bs have business buyers and technical buyers as well.
Yes.
I sometimes I think about that movie called Untouchables, where he says you don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Exactly.
So like you always need to, also when you prep for meetings, you need to study, okay, who is it that the customer is bringing in? Like you get the meeting booked. Now, who's actually gonna be attending this meeting? And if you feel like, if you don't study what are the titles and what are the roles of the people that are going to show up in this meeting, you're going to make it. I think. So one question to you, Lars: should you try to split meetings so you isolate different skills or personas to different meetings, or should you try to group meetings to kind of get that one aligned understanding of a product or a service, or what are you selling? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Somebody books a meeting with you, there's 6 people there, and then there's some technical people, there's like a security person, and then there's some like leaders over here as well. Would you want to go multiple meetings or one meeting if you can?
I would. This varies. This varies a lot from product offering to product offering, I have to say. But when it comes to a little bit more complex buyer processes, let's put it like that, or like sales processes.
Yeah.
What I typically do, and what we typically do, and what we see that we have most success with, even though it's a technical heavy product, and it might also be not technical from like a development side, but it might be engineers connected to it or something. It doesn't really matter. Like wherever someone with technical engineering development competence have to be connected. Let's see if we can anchor business value first. So we are trying most of the time to approach the business people, and sometimes that's the same person, but most often it's not, at least not in larger organization. When we anchor it with the business person first, and they understand again the rationale behind why this is so good for the business, they easily can bring in the technical resources, and it's easier for the business people to sell it to the technical resources than it is for the technical people to sell it to the business resources. This is almost always the case. So, but we look upon it like a journey, and I would say like this journey is a multi-step journey. So if you have the business value anchoring first, and that might be several business people also involved, when that is checked, then we can bring the technical people into the game. And when that box is checked, we might even bring in other people into the game. So it's a journey where it's, I believe sometimes, and maybe also most of the time, B2B sales processes and organizations working with those sales processes, they try to rush towards a contract. This is not the case. It's a relationship-based game where you actually need to nurture all the relations towards a contract. And I would say that you probably would shorten your sales cycles dramatically by adding logical steps when it comes to anchoring with different stakeholders, than trying to pull all people into one room, and then actually you're losing a little bit control of the process because you don't really know where this is going. So we try splitting, but not splitting in necessary. We try starting at the one part and adding in a way. So maybe at the end everyone is the same room, but then we have taken it step by step and increased the value along the way. Especially thinking about it from another perspective, Stefan, it's easy to talk about value, but what we have to address is also lowering barriers. And we know that the business people, they have different barriers than technical people. And if you know what barriers that we need to address in those certain meetings, I would say that a lot of your communication will be connected to lowering those barriers instead of emphasizing the values. And the easiest barriers to lower is definitely the business values, because as long as we address then revenue creation or cost reduction, we are going to get the business people along if, of course, the cost levels are the right.
Yeah.
The little bit more difficult ones to lower are typically the technical ones, right? Because you have so much opposition and so many opinions about what is good technology, what is bad technology, or it's built on this, it's built on that, is it not single, is it like, there's so many things. But if we have the business people along on our side, they're going to support in trying to drive it through at least. If you have the technical people along the side, they might also try to be on our side to drive it through. But if they're communicating towards business people, it might not be as easy because we need to be in communication with them. A long answer to a short question. Sorry.
No, I think it's almost every meeting you have in the sales process, you need to think about this.
Yes.
Should we bucket everybody together, or should we isolate people so we can be more specific to a specific use case or like business problem? Interesting.
Yeah. And it's different time. So if you look upon it, like again from a commercial concept standpoint, then what we typically do is that we look upon different kinds of organizations, because it will be larger, smaller organizations, mid organization, and large organizations, right? They have different kind of buyer decision maker constellations. Maybe in a small organization it might be 2 people and even maybe 1, while in the larger ones it might be 8, right?
Yeah.
And when from that narrative that we started showing some frameworks of earlier, basically what we're doing is that we are actually mapping out, as I mentioned, a single rational and narrative for all of these decision makers that are in that organization.
Yeah.
And when we have done that, we are actually almost always also then spreading them along a timeline representing the sales process and say, when do we want to address this narrative? Not when do the customer like to address it, when do we want to address it?
Yeah.
Because we would like to lead the process. We would not like them to lead the process, right?
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's so easy to lose control of deals, because then another person comes in and that person is not really important, but they are very noisy, and then you have to kind of deal with all those questions that they so you're saying like figure out who is kind of the business decision maker first, and then try to build your process around that, or
at least I would
first.
I would at least say that not all the times, of course, but most of the time someone from a business level has to be looped in. And if we haven't been successful in anchoring it to the business level, I bet you the technical people will not be successful either.
No.
So it's also about not wasting time. So if we try to anchor it with business side first and they don't see the value of it, then you most likely should drop it for now and go for another deal. And then we work back to it at some point and set some marketing on it and something like that. I don't like, yeah.
So this is a question you probably also could talk an hour about, but so we've been talking very like singular towards like a decision-making process between you and the customer. But a lot of times you're also facing competition, whether that's from like the prospect made a vendor list of 3 to 5 companies that they are looking at, or it's either build it yourself or go with this vendor. So maybe just you can say a little bit about when you're in this sales process, how do you deal with the competitive or alternative solution landscape as the deal progresses?
Well, that was a great question, Stefan. So now I'm going to flip to another slide, actually.
I actually didn't have. Okay, let's. I'll pull it up here.
Yeah, and of course it's a little bit small, so I hope people can see it. But so this is what happens when actually we take only one of these product narratives. We say that we're focusing on this one, the first one, the minimum value. And look at that ICP, look upon the feature support that is going to give us. Who is going to be the decision makers along the way? Maybe it starts with one decision maker, and we know that we need to add the others to just get buy-in. And we need to address the pains and barriers on all of these sides. And then we add to that exactly what you're talking about. What are the competitors out there? Because if we see the competitors, we understand who these people are, and we understand the pain points and the value equation that and how we can contribute to that, we can start chiseling out objection handling. And objection handling is something that is also down prioritized. Why should they choose us over another one? And if we do objection handling, or sorry, if we build arguments around why we are better than our competitors, we usually do that out from our perspective of our product. And we forget to anchor it to the ones that we're actually communicating to, because we have to make at least some hypothetical, some assumptions about we should be better. Because we are talking to the business owner right now, and we can do A, B, and C, and we know that our competitors, they're not that good at that.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're going to talk to the technical buyer. We know that we should be a better alternative because of A, B, and C. So you have to do the same when it comes to this. And objection handling is something that is wonderful to build and a wonderful tool box if you are a salesperson. And again, sadly, mostly no one spend time on it. They rather spend time on other kind of stuff, while this is probably what is going to bring the sales process the furthest, the quickest.
Yeah, we've definitely, whenever we've invested time in like doing a proper, we call them battle cards against competition, it has really helped the salespeople in those processes on how do you win a deal. Well, you need to know your opponent.
Yes.
And you can throw in another quote from The Art of War, and the battle is won before it starts. So as the sooner you can identify the alternative or the competition, you can start framing your whole positioning of the conversation around that without necessarily explicitly saying that I know it's this vendor, but all the features you highlight, you can start putting in there upfront.
Yeah, and that's it's so true. And looking from how we sell ScaleupXQ too, like I love doing sales, so I am running a lot of sales meetings, right? And the first thing I say every time, like it's more or less the same, is that I don't know necessarily what your expectations were when you came to this meeting today, but I just want to tell you one thing: we are not sales outsourcing. And then we set the scene already, because like, you're not sales outsourcing? No, we're doing sales, but we're doing it way differently that you probably are used to. Let me tell you about this. And then you can tell a story about how you're not sales outsourcing, you're something else. Because in our situation, we get compared to like demand agencies and lead sourcing agencies and outsource salespeople, but you can't really compare it. It's like apples and bananas, right? But it's not that easy to understand, right? So you need to anchor it as soon as possible, as you say. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, we can almost reach your list. I think you had 1 point left that we didn't touch upon.
Yeah.
So being honest about competencies brings you a long way. Yeah. So what does this mean? I think it's a good advice for life, but for a commercial concept, what does it mean?
For a commercial person, it means the whole world, right? And again, imagine that. I believe that this is one of the most important things, that like salespeople have a tendency to try to master everything when it comes to understanding a product, and there's a lot of ego in most of the people, not all, but it's a tendency that is more ego driven than in any other business, at least, or sorry, any other role and function in an organization. But so think about one thing, and that is like, if you're a sales professional, you should be honest about that is what you are. Like, you understand the business side of things, and you can definitely talk about the value creation of your product up towards maybe a business level. But if you're a junior salesperson, you cannot go to battle with a VP and a C level typically in an organization, and you should just be honest immediately about your level, about your competencies. And keep the communication to that level, and also be honest about you not being the expert, that you need to bring in the experts, but you are there to do A, B, and C, and that's your job, and that's the level of your expertise. If you do that, mostly anyone you meet in the B2B space in Europe, at least, they lower their shoulders immediately because nobody wants to be a bully. If you at least gotten to a certain level in the organization and you are on a top level top level hierarchy in a buyer, right?
Yeah.
So we do this. This is something, especially like in an organization like yours, then when you say that we might need some marketing competencies, right? Like if you talk to a lot of marketing people, the first thing a salesperson should do is to just bring down the barriers to say that, you know marketing much better than me. I am working with sales. But I can pull on all the resources in the world to explain how this works. If you give me a few minutes to just explain how this will bring you more business, right?
Yeah. No, I think that is, and also you don't want to be taken as a fool, meaning that a junior trying to act like he understands my world. So it's
exactly.
I like it much better when salespeople say, "I don't know the answer, but I'll write it down and I'll come back to you with the answer."
Yes.
And we encourage our salespeople all the time to don't be afraid of pulling in an expert, whether that's if you're taking a meeting with a content person, bring in somebody who knows that, or if it's a CTO, then bring in our CTO. Because then those two people can talk together instead of you and the CTO.
Yeah, and this is this is like when you are talking about, like we're talking about anchoring things at a business level, value level. We're talking about like building a rational. We're talking about you have to sell mostly or most often to both the business side and technical side, or a technical buyer with some other competencies. Like in this world, if you then try to be the expert on everything, you're going to be called off. The bluff is going to be called because you're never going to be the expert in these areas.
Yeah.
But putting the pride in being the expert in how to then run a sales process, how to make sure to align people along the way, not convincing people about the quality of the product and those things. Just bring in the right assets and just stay on being the one that is nurturing the process, and then you're going to be hugely successful. But sadly, that is also something that we see that is quite often being down prioritized. You have this one man or one girl show, the people that are out hustling and they are pretending to be the world champions and everything, and they're down prioritizing how to run processes and actually get alignment, and up prioritizing that they're going to be the best at everything. And that means that they're also going to lose out on all the sales opportunities that are the best ones, for sure.
Probably a big culture aspect here as well, that kind of like there shouldn't be a lot of fear in the organization, because then you don't dare to ask for help, and people should know each other. So there's kind of like a friendly work environment. So you're not afraid of asking things. So that's another episode as well. But like, if people are not used to collaborating and know that they can trust their colleagues, then this won't happen as well.
That's right.
But maybe Lars, so kind of if you have to kind of, I would say, boil all your experience down, but maybe just like try to kind of frame kind of what makes a commercial concept successfully in general. Just 1 or 2 minutes, what would that story sound like?
Yeah. So if you would like to boil it down, it's definitely I would say that at least the core point would be that it's not about the individual value propositions. It's not about the individual functionality, the individual decision maker, the individual decision maker group, their expertise and so forth. But it's about the red thread that goes through all of it and the rationale behind it. Like understanding why a certain person or a certain user or a certain decision maker might gain benefits from a certain part of your product, and how that person then can see this being anchored to either revenue generation or cost reduction at some level at least. Understanding that rationale is basically the core of any communication. And so you can say that all the bits and parts, like I can show you hundreds of templates like linked to this, because we have so many ways of working this. But the most important thing is what we do afterwards, is actually that we write out the rationale around this. So actually we explain why it is the way it is. And when someone reads that rationale, they can sit and like, oh, this makes sense. Now I can actually start communicating it myself independently. And if you can do that, you are actually giving your salespeople a lot of freedom instead of actually trying to control their communication, which is not a good thing. If you want to have the best salespeople, you shouldn't control the communication. You should give them the rationale.
Wonderful. Okay, Lars, let's stop here. I know we could go on forever. If people want to hear more about you or like listen more to what you say, where should they follow you and your company?
They should definitely visit LinkedIn and look up ScaleupXQ or look up, I believe it's LJ Bjørkevoll or Lars Johan Bjørkevoll. I'm not sure what it is. And I rarely visit my own profile, but Lars Johan Bjørkevoll or LJ Bjørkevoll on LinkedIn, and we can have the communication there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining this last Christmas episode of the year. And let's definitely select one of these topics that we crossed for Q1 at some point as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank you.